is no tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't even know if we need an introduction anymore. What you think, Kenny?
I don't know, man. What you think? What you think? What you think?
No, man. I think.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
They don't know about this. They don't know.
Hey.
Go.
Get them Showtime. Get them Showtime.
One, go. We in the building. Back in this mother. Let's go. Turn me up.
Hey.
Let me calm down, man. I'm just excited to be back here, man. Showtime Speaks. Here with my dog Kenny Reds, man. I mean, come on.
We back, bro.
We back with another episode. And how you feeling, Kenny? What's going on? Like, what's going on in Kenny's world?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. Again, anytime we can get up, get with each other, talk, talk shop and just live.
Yeah.
I'm good, bro.
Nah, for real.
How about you? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Before we even get into it, man, I just want to thank everybody who has been tuned in, everybody who has been showing love, sharing the posts, liking, subscribing. If you haven't already, please tap in because we're doing something special, man. And we're doing something different. And I'm not trying to sell it, but I want you to be a part of the movement, and we're trying to build something for the culture that means something to me, the people behind it, Kenny, everybody that's involved. This is beginning to feel real, and I'm excited about it. And, I want you guys to feel the same way. Last week, you asked me about my word of the year, Kenny. I want to ask you about your word of the year.
I got 2 words, man.
Yeah.
One word is sacrifice. I feel like in order for us to get to where we need to be, sacrifice is always needed. So I feel like this year I got to sacrifice a couple things in order for me to get to that next level I'm trying to get to.
Oh, yeah.
And the second word is just organized, man. I feel like me as a business owner, entrepreneur, again, I do stuff alone, and sometimes I feel like I'm all over the place.
Ooh.
And I feel like in order for me to get to that next level, I need organization in my life. And I feel like if I can get that together, I feel like things will start coming together easier for me.
No, yeah, I respect that. Before we even get started and before we introduce our next guest, this topic that we're about to talk about has been something that's been growing amongst all of us, something that we all face, we all battle, and it's a space that we all need to tap into. And when it comes to mental health, I think that sometimes we ignore it. Sometimes we don't pay attention to it. Sometimes we don't give the energy that we need to give to it. But during this episode, we're going to tap into something different. And the special guest that we have here today, we are so extremely excited. She made the trip all the way from Baltimore. Shout out to Emily Perrin. She is a mental health therapist, former Division I soccer player, also coached. Man, I'll let her introduce herself. How are you doing? What's going on in your world?
I am good. I am pumped to be here. I love y'all.
Love you too.
We're talking about some really real challenging stuff that I think is very needed in the world right now. I'm honored to be here. I could talk for days about this stuff. So I'm excited to be with y'all and chat, get real, and take it from there.
No, yeah, man. We're going to dive into so much, but we are excited to have you here. Tell us about who you are. Give us a background. Tell us something about you that we don't know. Give us, school, everything.
Yeah, like where you from? Where you from? Like,
let's hear it.
Where am I from?
Yeah, where you from?
God, the life of Emily Perrin. So I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. I grew up there. What a lot of people don't know is like my introduction into, this world, the world of sport, but the world of, honestly, mental health and performance coaching comes from my dad. My dad was a college basketball coach. at the University of Virginia for 15 years. You know, he was there at UVA in the early 80s, the Ralph Sampson era, and has a PhD in sports psychology. So from a really young age, I grew up in a household that, I mean, it was all sport, right? I mean, I grew up in U-Haul. I grew up, you know, I think the second month, you know, I was born in September, basketball season started in October, and my mom was taking me to games as an infant, right? As a 2-month-old. So that's really all I've known. And, you know, grew up in Charlottesville, and from a pretty young age, I was an elite athlete. I actually swam. Swimming was my first love, and what I really thought I was going to go to college and do. And I got burnt out very quickly and transitioned to soccer, played soccer at UVA. And then I got straight into coaching. I think because of my dad, I really wanted to try coaching. So I spent 3 years at the University of Pennsylvania. Shout out to Philly. Love it.
Yes, sir.
I from there, and we can get into all of my work, but I've since then pivoted. I left coaching. I went back to school. I got my MSW, Master's in Social Work at the University of Denver. Became a mental health therapist, but I run my own company doing mindfulness and performance coaching with elite athletes like yourself and a lot of the athletes that Kenny works with. You know, I've been honored and privileged to work with some really elite level programs at schools like Stanford and Michigan and Duke. It's just been an incredible journey. And then I also serve as the director of the Medical Advisory Council at Morgan's Message, which is a nonprofit that really does incredible work in terms of mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma and education for athletes. So that's a little bit, I guess, you know, short version of me and my background.
So what actually kind of like, I know you kind of gave the background, but did coaching help you get into, you know, what you're into now? Like, did you see anything in coaching that you was like, I love coaching, but I want to really dig more deep into the mental side of things?
Yeah, I love that question. And definitely. So I think it was twofold for me, right? So one, you know, it was my own experience with mental health, which we can dive into. But I think in terms of the coaching piece, I mean, I think when I was a young college coach coaching at an Ivy League school, and like I went to UVA, it was a fantastic school, but like what I saw as a young college coach and what I felt like my job really became was not really coaching soccer, right? It wasn't really the X's and O's. And like, to be fair, like I love soccer, but I found very quickly that like, that's not what lit my soul on fire, right? There's that, I don't even know who said it, right? But like, you know, move towards the things that really light your soul on fire. And I just didn't feel like that was it for me. Like I liked soccer. But what I found was just so amazing about my work was connecting with my players and connecting with them off the field and getting to know them and their lives and what makes them tick. And I also saw a serious lack of resources when it came to mental health, but also just like helping these kids manage not only elite level performance, but simple day-to-day stuff, right? And we know, I mean, you know this better than anyone, both of you do, right? Like, in order to perform and maintain performance in a really elite level, we have to be doing the basic stuff well, right?
100%.
We have to be managing our day-to-day living well. And I just found more often than not that like athletes were really struggling with that. And so that's when I really like, I was like, I didn't know in that moment what I wanted to do and how I wanted to work with athletes, but I knew I did. And I knew I had to pivot. So I left and I mean, short story, had a total just like quarter life crisis, right? And fell apart. My mental health fell apart. And like, that's where I think my work, my calling, my purpose really came to fruition.
Yeah. We're going to dive into that.
We're going to dive into it.
Definitely going to dive into that. Let's talk about how we all met. You know, let's talk about the trajectory of our relationship, how it all started. You know, I know I met you through Kenny. And I think that moment for me was very pivotal during that time, and it was special. And I wanted to tell you thank you publicly, because as a pro athlete, you know, I feel like, you know, it's been a lot that I've battled, you know, throughout my entire career. I've been cut multiple times. I've won championships. I've lost championships. I've had money. I've lost money.
Yeah.
I've sacrificed a lot. And during that time where I really needed something, I feel like God placed you in that position,
Mm.
and it helped me throughout the season this year. And
Wow.
um, I'll never forget that conversation and the sessions that we did have, because they held so much value in taking that part of my training
Mm.
to a different level.
Yeah.
You know, because me and Kenny, we go and we do a lot of physical work,
Yep.
and it felt so good for him to introduce that to me to work on my mental.
Mm.
And I try to work on my mental by, doing stuff like this, but I just wanted to say thank you in person, and we're going, like I said, we're going to dive into a lot of this stuff too, but I just want to say thank you.
Oh man, that warms my heart. It
No,
means so
yeah.
much to me.
No,
And
yeah.
that's what, for me, this work is all about, right? And we can get into this, but like I think sitting with people, right, and making genuine connection
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
like it's gold,
No,
right?
yeah.
That's what life is about. It goes so far beyond sport and winning games and
Yeah.
championships and
No,
making
yeah.
money, right? Like
Yeah.
it's those moments I think are so pivotal, and I've had so many in my own career, right? But like I am just as transformed by my athletes, I think, as my athletes at times are by me.
No,
And
yeah.
your words really mean a lot to me.
No,
Thank you.
no doubt.
Yeah, it was cool. Because Mike actually told
Mm-hmm.
me about you. Shout out to Mike Sowers. And I look at Mike as a guy who's like real mentally tough.
Yeah.
And so as she and all my athletes, because my brand, I call it relentless effort
Yeah.
define success. And I'm heavy on the mental side, but not really heavy on, like the mental health side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them better physically and mentally, as in like push them to the limit. You can do anything you want to do. But when we had those sessions, it was different for me too, because I
Yeah.
never actually talked about my feelings. I keep everything in. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And I just thought that was great. So we appreciate you for sure.
Well, yeah, and Michael, who we're referring to, Michael Sowers, PLL lacrosse player, obviously introduced us, and that
Mhm.
has just kind of opened up the relationship, obviously, to you, but then other athletes. Yeah, I think there is, and to be fair, right, this conversation, I think for many athletes around mental health has been really hard, because for a really long time we've equated mental health to, oh, something's wrong,
Yeah.
mental illness, mental disorder, right?
Mhm.
And it's very taboo, and like, oh, okay, well, um when the reality is that that's not actually the case. Mental
Yeah.
health, everyone has it, and it occurs on a spectrum, right? And at the
Sure.
far end of one side of the spectrum is, sure, like
Mhm.
diagnosable mental health disorders, but like I think it's really just about like opening that line of communication and understanding that, like, absolutely, right, like what we think of as quintessential like sports psych or mental performance or like mental toughness, right,
Mhm.
actually falls on the spectrum of mental health,
Right.
right? And so I think when athletes understand that and they see that, it just opens doors. It opens doors to
Yes.
exploration. You asked Kenny what
Yes.
his word for the
Yes.
year was. My word is explore.
Wow.
It's a word I gave to Michael for this year, for 2024. And I think exploration is such a powerful, beautiful door to open for athletes when it comes to mental health and just exploring like the world, the wide range of the mind and emotions.
Nah, you said some really powerful things. Explore, that is a great
Mm,
terminology to use. I think that ties into, I want to give the audience a walk in our journeys, a little bit. I
absolutely.
want to talk about, you know, our own journeys with mental
Mm,
health.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I kind of want to give the floor to each one of us to talk about, you know, just your process through it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start with
Please
with
do.
with it. I think that during the time when I met you, I was going through a time where, I was going through a time where I was getting ready for my contract stuff.
Hmm.
And it's always a hard time, because you know your value, but you're basing everything off of what they think about you too, and you got a lot of stuff going on and a lot of things that you cannot control.
Sure.
I think that last year I tapped into a different space of thinking. And, when I was going through that process, I think that we did an exercise and we talked about being present and we talked about it's okay to feel
Mm.
and it's okay. There is no right or wrong way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And like to me, like I would beat myself up on things that I had no control over. And I always had to feel like I gotta have my hand on it or I gotta feel like I'm losing control because I'm not in control.
Yeah.
And I've always been in these situations where, you know, things are out of my control. And, I went to a Division 3 school. I went to a high school that I remember when I was young and I was trying to apply to go to schools. This stuff goes all the way back to when I was trying to apply to go to high schools.
Mm.
And Philly, when you're trying to apply for schools, you can apply for like Central, Northeast. You can apply to all these schools, and I was rejected.
Mm.
So therefore, I had to go to my neighborhood school. So I went to Roxborough High School. So it was just like all the way back to, my mental health journey starts from back when I was, a kid too.
Yeah.
And things that I've experienced and the trauma that I've experienced. And, I talk about where I'm from and how much it has impacted me and it has hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the biggest reasons why Showtime Speaks is a thing is because this is where I come to get my mental health.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? This is where I come to, when I get in front of the mic,
Mm-hmm.
I'm freeing myself.
Mm.
And, and people ask me about, why do you speak or why is he so passionate or why is he, to be honest, when I'm doing a lot of these speeches and when I'm doing a lot of stuff that I'm doing, I'm really talking to myself. And
I
I'm
love it.
convincing that version of me that isn't confident, that isn't aware of my own feelings or that like when I'm yelling, I'm getting to that point, and I'm posting these things on my social media, it's a mirror that's looking back at me that's like screaming at myself.
Mm.
And that's a part of my mental health journey. And it's been hard and it's not easy being a pro athlete. It's not easy growing up where I'm from, but I'm still here and I'm fighting and I'm learning how to deal with my emotions.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that I do need help.
Yeah.
And and I'm okay with saying that.
Mm.
And that's my story behind it. And hopefully I opened up the door for everybody else to feel and let them know that it's okay to feel.
Mm.
I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who is not afraid to show how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I try to make other men feel like, all right,
Sure.
if she can do that, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'm always constantly working on it, and it's a constant challenge, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to admit that I too struggle with it.
Mm.
You know,
You should
Yeah.
be proud of it. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
No,
I
yeah.
think it's vulnerability sharing is, in my opinion, the scariest. Are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay. It's the scariest shit you'll do as a human,
Mhm.
right? But it is, in my opinion, when we know how to do that safely and with people that are safe, it is the most beautiful thing on the earth,
Yeah.
right? And I think the emphasis and what I really drew from what you were sharing is like it's a journey,
It is.
right? Mental health. I just posted something the other day. Like mental health is not a destination, right?
Mm.
It's a journey. It's a sometimes minute by minute agonizing process, and that's certainly been my process. And it's one of the reasons why I do the work that I do because I've been in some really dark places. I'm totally open and very adamant about sharing my journey in the work that I do, but as a therapist as well. From a really young age, pretty significant childhood trauma, which manifested throughout my life in a lot of different ways, right? Chronic anxiety, panic disorder, suicidal ideation, a suicide attempt at the age of 16, self-harm, and, have been in, inpatient psych wards twice in my life, right? Like I know what it's like to be in places that, make you feel really hopeless and misunderstood. And, not only that, but I think my coping mechanisms throughout my life have also been, not the most productive, right? I mean, self-harm we know is a way to cope, but it's, not the most efficient. Alcohol, one, not great relationships with other people, binge eating, like a lot of things, right? And, my journey, I think throughout so much of my mental health journey, there was a fundamental piece of me that felt like I am broken, right? Like there's something wrong with me. There's something defective or deficient with me because um this isn't this isn't how you're supposed to live life. I knew that, right? There was a really piece of me that was like, this is not how you're supposed to live life, right? And to be fair, like my life wasn't worth living, it felt like. And so I got out of inpatient at 27 and felt like, wow, I want to figure this out, right? I want to get to a place where my life is worth living and I'm healthy and yeah, that's where I honestly, I just, something in me was like, go get on a yoga mat. I don't know why. I really don't know why, but there was something in me that was like, everybody keeps saying that yoga's great, yoga's great, yoga's great. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go get on a yoga mat, right? I have nothing to lose at this point, right? Like I have been at the lowest point of my life. Let's just do it. And slowly I found refuge there, right? That was really one of the first places through a yoga practice and a breathwork practice. And the message in that yoga class, I'll never forget it because it changed my life. The message from that yoga teacher was, there is no need to be anything that you are not. And for someone who throughout my mental health journey felt chronically like I'm not right? Like there's something fundamentally wrong with me. That message of just like, wow, I don't have to be anything that I'm not right now. Right. Was so, I mean, I wept. I was in Shavasana and I wept. And so that was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Right. And yeah, I mean, slowly I just kept digging and digging into mindfulness and meditation and breath work. And that's really where I noticed a shift in my life, my ability to handle my emotions, navigate my thoughts. And that's where I was like, holy crap, if I had just had some of these tools and skills as an athlete, as a coach, I think my journey would have been a lot different. And, I think twofold, right? This element of going through really hard stuff, what we know actually leaves us quite dysregulated, right? Quite, and that's something in the nervous system, right? Which kind of led me then to really dive into a lot of the work that I do with athletes, right? Which is nervous system regulation, it's mindfulness, it's interoception, right? Really helping athletes understand how to feel their bodies and how to feel what they're feeling, because we know that's such a fundamental piece of mental health, right? And if I look back on my journey with mental health, I think so much of what I was feeling was actually the inability to feel and the inability to handle what I was feeling, right? And so yeah, that's my journey. It's, and I always say, like, I do what I do because I don't want anyone to go there. I don't want anyone to be there, right? It is a place I wish for no human to go. And, at the same time, right? How I dealt with it and how I chose to come out of it is a really beautiful story and something that, quite frankly, like I'm really proud of. It's one of the most, I think till the day I die, it'll be the single most important and profound aspect of my life.
That's love. That is love, man. And talking about me, like I think for me, I'm a very closed in person too. So like this is like honestly very uncomfortable for me. So
that's okay.
But for me it's like I feel like a lot of pressure. Growing up, a lot of my uncles, a lot of the father figures in my family, like the guys, they all, big time athletes. I'm probably like the worst athlete in my family, if you want to say that. But like, they all kind of chose their own paths. And growing up, I had my older sister Chanel to kind of lead the way with certain things. But right now I'm in a position where it's like I'm kind of like the guy to, lead the way and, get my mom that house and
Mm,
to help my little sister, help my family out. And, it's pressure.
Mm.
sure.
It's a lot of pressure for me. And at times, you know, I regulated to, smoking a lot of weed at one point in my life. And, I thought that would help me get away from it. But
Mm.
in reality, it kind of made me go a little bit more crazy because you get into your thoughts even deeper.
Sure.
And now it's just like, even as, the sessions that we had, it helps me realize that, like, you know, it's okay to be where you are. You know what I mean? I know there's a saying you say, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
So I always try to be present in the moment and try to just really just focus about not doing everything that I need to do. You know what I mean? As in, like, Father, all right, if you're gonna get your mom in the house, it's gonna happen one day.
Mm,
You know what I mean? If you got your nephews looking after you, just do the right things. You know what I mean? So with me, it's just the pressure that be getting to me sometimes.
absolutely.
And I be just trying to figure out different ways and being around being around my athletes. Of course I talk to them, but it's tough
Yeah.
for me for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, man, that's a deep breath moment. I think we all just
Love
shared
that.
something that has been weighing on us for a long time. I think that what people need to get from that is, it's okay to share.
Absolutely.
I think that, I think the biggest thing is fellowship. I think the biggest thing is having conversation. And us having this conversation, I hope it can help families and help people around the world have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Because what we just did and what we're going to do throughout this entire segment, this entire podcast, we're going to open up and we're going to reveal ourselves. And, that's important. I think having that ability to speak on what we just spoke on, it's healing.
Mm,
And I didn't even know that story about you. You saying what you were saying about, things that you've been through. And,
mm,
that's a testament, and if we spiritually speaking, man, we're all blessed to still be here, and
yeah.
to fight through all the things that we've, fought through and everybody, we all fighting a battle.
Mm-hmm.
I think people need to realize that when it comes to this mental health thing, like you're not alone.
Mm,
Like you're not. Kenny struggle, M struggles, I struggle, Matt, but like Tina, everybody, we
yeah.
all have a place in this world where we get to a place where we're struggling and we lose it a little bit. But when you can sit down at a table like this, in a setting like this, and have a conversation the way we having, that saves your life, and it might save somebody else's.
Yeah.
Um, but as we tap into the next segment, I'm going to give you the floor, M.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk about mindfulness. I want you to talk about what you do, and we're going to do something exciting. We're going to do an exercise. So take the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a good segue too is like, cause as you were speaking, something came to mind and this was actually really powerful in my own mental health journey, but also like, I think why mindfulness in particular is so transformative for people, for athletes. One of my favorite quotes that I live by, we don't really know who said it. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And I think for so many of us, myself included, for a really long time in my own mental health journey, I thought the key was stopping the struggle, right? Stopping the anxiety, stopping the panic, right? Like this is a moment when I was living, like I had panic disorder, right? I was living from panic attack to panic attack. And I thought, oh, okay, the answer is to just like stop that, right? And I came across this quote, right? You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And it was like, oh my God, that's a really light bulb idea,
I
right?
like
Like
that.
we might not necessarily be able to stop everything that's going on, right? And I think of life as waves, right? Life comes in waves for every single human. It ebbs
Yeah.
and flows. No human is immune to pain and struggle.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, right? You can't stop that. So stop trying to make the goal, the objective to stop that. Why don't we help people learn how to surf? And I think that mindfulness as a core and foundational skill for any human being is about that. It is about helping people learn how to surf because this, if we talk about the definition of mindfulness, right? This like paying attention in a really particular way, like we pay attention on purpose, we pay attention in the present moment, and we do it with this very balanced kind of like non-judgmental awareness, right? That is a skill that is about awareness and helping people gain more awareness around who am I, my own thoughts, my own feelings, and how I show up to the world, how I interact with the people around me, how I interact with the stuff that's going on in life. And if we give more people awareness, right? Wow, we give more people power and choice to really make better decisions, right? When it comes to their mental health and navigate their emotions and thoughts in slightly more productive ways, right? So this like learning how to surf is I think what mindfulness is all about. And again, there is if we even look at a lot of like clinical interventions, and theories, you will see a mindfulness component to almost all of them, right? Whether it's CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, right? A lot of trauma interventions. There is a mindfulness component to almost all of them. And there's a reason for that because of this awareness piece. And we know that awareness is going to be at the heart of giving people more agency, choice, control over their mental health. So the other thing that I think is really important for people to understand is that mindfulness, it can be a little misleading because of the word mind, right? Mindfulness. It's not just a mind thing. And this is why I think take it a step farther. It's so profound for athletes because we have to use our bodies for everything.
Yeah.
We don't have bodies, we are bodies, right? We live and we experience the world and our sport in particular through our bodies.
Yeah.
Yet so many of us are so disconnected from our bodies, right? And we live in a society that really prioritizes thinking.
Yep.
I mean, how often, right, are we told not to feel, right? Don't prioritize feeling. Don't make decisions based off of feeling. Be rational. Be logical, be rational, right? And any sort of, and that, right? We've talked about this, creates then fear around feeling. When the reality is that actually we know that the two don't operate separately. And our mind and our body are working as one. And so mindfulness, right, is this skill that is embodied, right? It allows us to truly be in our bodies and help athletes understand this connection between our thinking and our feeling. And I think that's really huge because especially when it comes to emotional regulation, there's such a body-based component to that. So we need the whole thing operating. So that's why I think mindfulness over a lot of other traditional, like hardcore mental performance skills, I just think it's better, quite frankly. I do. I just think it's more effective. I think it's more, I think it is more important. So why don't I guide you through, right? And we kind of explore this thing called mindfulness. And I love this. This comes from another meditation teacher that I follow, but let's think about this for a second. So we don't need to do anything, right? And this is really going to paint a great picture for like, oh, this is what mindfulness is, I think. So I want you guys to think, don't do anything yet. I just want you to think about rubbing your hands together right now.
Okay.
Think about it, right? So like have this like vision in your head, but also like think about what that might feel like, what it might be like. All right. So we're thinking right now. It's in our brains. You guys got it? Okay. Now I want you to put your hands together and I want you to actually do it. And I want you to really feel and tap in and be with this experience of rubbing your hands together. And this may be a little funny. It may be a little new. And so again, can we come to this? It's not just being present. It's not just being and feeling this experience, right? It's doing it with this just really kind of like open, balanced, like, I don't know what's here. Beginners, we call it the beginner's mind, right? Like feel. Like really allow yourself to like drop into this experience of like feeling your hands. Okay. And so now let's put the hands down, and that just simple exercise, right? Of like first thinking, right? How different are those two things, right? Just thinking about doing something and actually doing it, being it, right? that's what we're trying. The latter is what we're trying to do with mindfulness. And just think about the profoundness of that for an athlete who has to really be in their experience in any given moment to be at their peak performance, right?
Yeah. That's a mind thing. That is crazy. That is, whoa.
I'm
still trying to.
So, and right, I want to really normalize that, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a skill that like, I think at surface level, everybody's like, oh, okay,
Simple.
be mindful.
Yeah,
Super
yeah,
simple,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But holy shit, there is a lot of complexity to this, right?
Yeah.
Which is why, like, let's take Michael Sowers, for example. We've been working together for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
The journey in this is never ending.
No,
And that's what I love, right?
Yeah.
You can see how excited I am about this because I'm like, you can just like live in that, right?
No,
There's
but
so much there.
But you literally, it makes sense though. Like we went from a thought to action to actually being in the moment.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what it's like to be an athlete.
Yeah.
We're in the huddle, boom, call a play, ace right, blah, 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 whatever. You got to think it. You got to go out there and you got to feel. It's like everything's all connected to everything. And even when things go wrong, you still got to recenter yourself.
Yeah.
I'm rubbing my hands again. Like those kind of things bring you back to the training.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happened to me this year, where it came to stuff that I was thinking and I was feeling, but I needed to like say it too. You know what I'm saying? Because I was thinking it, but it was just like, I didn't know if I was right for thinking that. Like, I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that one thing that you told me was, it's no, like you said, like it's no right or wrong way of thinking. Like, can you explain that for everybody? Like, I know, like, because I think it has everything to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I can honestly say, when I sit here and you say rub your hands together, I'm like, why do I need to rub my hands together? Like what is
right?
like what does that mean?
What is this crazy lady trying to get me to do?
Yeah, but you think about right and wrong, and it just like, does that make sense to me?
Yeah. Right? Okay. So, and I think this is the most, this is the hardest part about mindfulness, right? So, and this is what we call that element of like judgment, right? So what I mean by that, and I want to clarify, right? So like, okay, objectively at times there's a right or a wrong way to do or think about things, right?
Okay.
100%, right? Like
Logical.
2 + 2 is always going to equal 4, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it doesn't equal 5, okay?
Right,
I understand that, right? But the point here is that we have a skill that allows us to tap into this more non-judgmental, balanced way of thinking.
Yes.
And that's what we need, right? So here's what I mean by, and let's take your example of, you dealing with some type of train of thought, right? And then having this added on filter of, I shouldn't be thinking that.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the reality, right? Is who says you should or shouldn't be thinking that?
Right.
You do, right? Okay. You're placing that expectation, that judgment on yourself that I should or should not be thinking that, right? Yeah. Based on a lot of things, right? Based on your own lived experience, based on society, right? That makes sense, right? But mindfulness comes in and says exactly this. Like, whoa. Hold on a second. Like, who's telling you that you should or should not be thinking this way, right? You're a human. You have thoughts.
That's deep.
Right? There's not at times, and I think there's something really profound in being able to come to our experience and say, like, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to think about this, good or bad, right? And I think this is really, if we kind of make a parallel thread here to emotions and being able to navigate emotions, this is really, really important. So this is something that I deal with quite frequently with athletes, which is anxiety, right? Yeah. We all get anxious, right? Let's normalize that. And what happens is a lot of us tend to get anxious and then we feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't be anxious. Oh my God, I don't want to be anxious. Oh my God, let's make it go away, right?
Yes.
If we take that, right, again, and remove this like added pressure and expectation to not be anxious, right, then we just have a feeling. The feeling is, I'm anxious. Right. I'm feeling anxious. And now I can work with it.
Yes.
Right. So that's what we mean by, and kind of tapping into this lens of, well, how do we at times and strategically, right? It's a skill to be able to remove this like added filter or lens that we apply to our thinking and feeling. I think it is a really profound thing.
Yeah, because I do that all the time when I'm posting.
Right?
Like posting, I'm like, dang, like 5 minutes out, like, they know. When I'm posting, I'm like, dang, am I supposed to be posting? I just post like a day ago. I posted 2 hours ago.
Right?
Like, am I posting too much? So like I go through that daily too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's 100%, right? And a lot of us probably feel like we're, it almost feels like a ping pong table inside your head, right? It's like, oh my God. And again, I think it's, part of that we need to be better at is actually normalizing that. In my opinion, like that's what it means to be human at times, right? And also, can we give ourselves this skill, this tool that allows us to balance that at times, right?
No, yeah, you got to really tap into your emotions to understand what we're talking about. Cause it's some deep thinking and some deep stuff, because I feel like we all, like you said, social media.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Bro,
social
big.
media has been a huge thing. Like I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I didn't posted something yesterday.
All the
I
time,
felt like everybody was messing with it. All right, I ain't trying to do too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or you feel like you being too much.
Yeah.
But you only feel like that because you telling yourself
exactly,
that.
bro. Exactly.
I call Kenny on the phone and he'd be like, bro, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, just stop. And I'll be like, bro, you did the same thing and you think the same way. What do you mean? It's like crazy, man, because you're in a constant battle and you are human.
You're human,
But you need people around. That's why I always say, make sure you got the right people around you, because
100%.
it helps get you back on track. It helps you get where you need to be, and it reminds you, yo, you're human.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
well,
man.
and I think with that, right, it's why also it's really great to have people around you that, absolutely provide you safety, provide that balance, but also have the skill of mindfulness, right? To be able to draw you back into that. I mean, even I need that at times, right? I think that's, I always say it's like, okay, so who's your inner circle, right? And it's okay to care about your inner circle and care what they think, right? Because you care about them as well, right?
Yeah.
But like, if it's somebody that's in, I don't know, Montana, that lives in a town you've never heard of, right? That's chirping at you on social media, like, they're not my inner circle,
right.
right? I don't.
It doesn't matter.
That's right.
You gotta let it go, right?
Man. And you got to have a strong mind, man. I mean, it's hard out here.
Yes.
It's hard being human. I always say that.
It really is, man. And I think it's a constant battle. Let's do something exciting now. We have this thing called rapid response.
Let's go.
Okay, you're allowed to give a full paragraph, sentence, whatever you need. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to spit out just some words.
It's on you.
Yeah. So it's on me first,
this is on you. Okay.
we'll bounce it back and forth.
Okay.
So we'll do it how we did it before. I'll say one of the words.
Okay.
Kenny will say a word. I'll say a word.
Okay.
And we'll go like that.
Okay. Wait, and I'm supposed to give a response.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It could
got
be one word. It could be a response or whatever.
All right. Got it.
You ready? Loneliness.
Devastating.
Decision making.
Critical.
Overcoming stress.
Ooh. I'm gonna give a longer answer on that one because I think overcoming stress is this is something I'm super passionate about, right? Because stress gets a pretty bad rep, right? Like, oh, stress, we don't want it, right? Well, stress just means that it's load on our mind and body, right? So for example, like driving here and sitting down and doing this podcast, right, is stress on my mind and body. It's not necessarily bad stress, right? It's stress in excess, right? Without our ability to actually, like, what I call like metabolize and navigate that, right? So I think overcoming stress, right, is very much about being able to befriend ourselves. And it's a skill that's really critical for, I think, just overall well-being, but particularly mental health.
Depression.
This the one right here. Come on, that's what we need.
So it's interesting because my answer to depression isn't it's not words, it's a feeling. And it's a feeling like really deep inside my chest because I've been there. And you know, it's a feeling, it's a place I wish no human to go. And so yeah, I think that's my answer. It's more so a feeling that just feels really hollow in my heart.
Now, to go deeper into that one, I know we're doing quick response.
Yeah.
How long should we stay in that? Is there a timetable? Is there?
Well, I think it depends, right? We have to remember that like depression, you know, also occurs on a spectrum, right? Like a lot of like depression, major depressive disorder is a mental health diagnosis, right? But that even occurs on a spectrum, right? So I think where we need to like language is really important is like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to, you know, even like sadness occurs on a spectrum and then we dip our toe into grief, right? These are really normal, needed feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
I really believe that. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to be down.
Yeah.
And I think there is this misconception, right? That like, okay, so if I go there, if I allow myself to go there, then like I can't do anything else. And that's not actually the case, right? Like we can still function and be humans in the world and move and get done what needs to be done, right? While also making space for our feelings. And that's a skill, right? But I think that's a really important piece of the equation, right? And we also know that when we don't actually allow ourselves to process and be with our emotions, they end up compounding, right? They end up coming back and biting us in the ass. And we don't want that either. It's not great for our lives or mental health, but there's also been a ton of more and more research coming out, right, on the actual impact of that physically, right? It's very linked to, you know, not feeling our emotions, not processing our emotions, is linked to a lot of chronic disease as well, right?
Wow.
So this is a really important part of the equation and of living well.
Yeah.
I like what you said about still being able to function, even while you're in that state of mind or state of place. I think that was very important. The last one is doubt.
I deal with this a lot with a lot of my athletes.
Okay, so I have a more extended answer for this, right? Because and this is something that I think is so important and so much of my job, right, is like normalizing validating, right? Like we need to normalize doubt. Every single human doubts themselves.
100%.
There is nothing wrong with you when you dabble in doubt. And I think for a really long time, there's been this message, right, in sport and like kind of more hardcore mental performance that like, you know, doubting is for the weak, right? Or like, and where did that come from, right? Like, I think those are just really detrimental messages that make athletes feel abnormal. And when we feel abnormal, there is shame. And when there is shame, it's really hard. Shame is a place that, oh man, just festers and it takes over. And I just think that when we break shame, in my opinion, when we normalize and validate. And so for all of my athletes out there, right, it is okay to doubt yourself, right? And at the same time, right, and this is how, like, this is the crazy thing about being human, right, is that two things can be true at the same time. I can doubt myself and I can still, right, continue to take action and take steps and process that doubt, right, and seek out help, right, and all the above, right? So really just like the word doubt is like, let's normalize it, right? I mean, God almighty, I don't think I go a day without doubting myself. And that doesn't mean that I'm not confident in spaces. And that doesn't mean that I'm not equipped and efficient and really good at what I do. It means that I'm human.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I remove that pressure, right, that expectation to just not doubt myself and to always be positive and confident and a go-getter, right, then, oh my God, right, like I drop the shame, I remove the shame, and I just get to navigate my experience.
Now, are some of the things that can help with that, you know, is them positive words you speak to yourself every morning?
So
Do you think that? Or?
I
Because I do that every morning.
Yeah, I mean, so here's also the beauty of it, right? And what I love to emphasize with all my athletes is like, no two people are the same. Therefore, what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me. And what works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, right? We have to step into our own journey. And this is where like I kind of break my work down with athletes into 3 categories, right? Like seeing, listening, and being with people, right? Educating, and then empowering. Okay. And I think part of this, right, is really helping people understand that like your journey is your own. It is nobody else's. Yep. And it is certainly not on me to come in and tell you how to do you.
100%.
I will never know an athlete better than they know themselves. Just like, no one else is going to know me better than I know me. And so if that works for you, amazing. But what I also want to really normalize, especially when it comes to positive affirmations and positive thinking, is that a lot of people, they see and hear this information that like, oh, this is just what we need to be doing. Everybody needs to be saying, positive affirmations, and we always have to be thinking positive. And that's not always true. And what happens, and what I often find, is that, athletes will try to do that. It doesn't help. It doesn't work for them. And then they feel wrong. They feel like they're doing it wrong. Yeah. Right. And again, that promotes shame. Yep. It promotes guilt. It promotes that athlete feeling like they're inept, like they're abnormal when they're not. Right. Yeah. It's not guaranteed for everyone. And I think those types of things really have to come from a place of awareness and understanding. And so if we actually just help athletes like at a basic level, and this is why I love mindfulness, like get to know themselves, right? Then we can help them actually get to know what's going to help and serve them and support them.
I like that.
That's deep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I do got a lot of young athletes sometimes be like, dang, I'm not good. Their parents tell me, they think they're not good enough. Yeah. They just need that confidence. And I'm always like, I'm a positive guy. So I'm a words guy. So I'm like, you got to tell yourself, like, you her, you him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, right, this is where we go back to that, like, we're mind body creatures, right? And so sometimes, just because we think something doesn't mean that it registers and resonates in our body. Yeah. 100%. Right? You're right. So I can come up and I can say like, I'm really confident. I'm really confident. I'm really confident. Yeah. And yet in my body, in my bones, in my soul, in my nervous system, right? I don't feel it. Right. And so we have to work with the feeling at some level, right? We have to work with the body. And so clearly there's something, right? And some of this, right, gets into, again, and this is why it's so complicated. And this is why I truly believe like any thought or feeling around performance is never just around performance, right? It's never just around sport. It starts way earlier than that.
It's so much beyond that. And I think that I've unlocked that within myself, knowing that because I'm struggling with something else, I'm having a problem with this over here. One of my biggest things was, and we'll get into it as we get down here, was letting go. And I'll give a small example of, because I had a problem with letting go over here with this, I had a problem with letting go of the coach telling me you did this or you ran the wrong route, and I'm sitting there and like I gotta take that and being in that seat, and you're thinking about, like being a pro athlete looks like this. You play in the game, you do what you do, and you come in the next day or a day or two, and they got the film up there on the board, and you're watching it and you're looking at it and you're like, they show you all the bad stuff. They show you some of the good stuff. But when we get into these like position meetings and we're talking about everything, oh, we don't like this. What are you doing? You ran the wrong route, or you got all these check marks next to your name because you didn't do something right. And that feeling of you wanting to rebuttal back, wanting to like express like, nah, I was thinking this, I was feeling this. It's hard. And you do doubt yourself. I always say, man, as athletes, I feel like we do grow up faster, because we're in a business where, especially being a pro athlete, I said it in the previous episode, you want to be a pro athlete. Well, it comes with a lot. You know what I'm saying? It comes with the doubt. It comes with the depression. It comes with, and I think that we all go through it, but it's so heightened because we're on TV. We're out there in the world. People got access to us on social media or all types of stuff. That brings me to my next question. When it pertains to athletes, like what's the most common situations you encounter the most? Like when it comes to athletes, what are athletes struggling with the most? When they come to Emily, what's their biggest thing that they have going on?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Okay, so I think there's some obvious ones, right? Which is like, this is not just in the athletic community, but I think across the board, right? Yeah. Higher levels of anxiety, depression, and ADHD. And my theory, because I work in trauma, I'm really interested in trauma, I'm becoming a trauma therapist. I think the reality is if we as an athletic community want to be more mental health aware and actually move the needle on mental health, it actually requires us to simply understand trauma. 90% of the population has experienced some form of traumatic event.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't always manifest as what we consider, PTSD, right? But trauma impacts us in very profound ways. I've got a couple statistics, right? So like more than 2/3 of children reported at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. 2/3, right? 64% of adults reported that they'd experienced at least one type of ACE, which is an adverse childhood experience, right? Before the age of 18. What I am seeing, right, is widespread trauma everywhere we go. Look at what's happening in the world. Yeah. Look at what is happening in the world, right? Let alone what's, occurring in the United States, right? Yeah. And we need to understand the impact of that. And so, for coaches, especially, and a lot of the work that I do, I need to be aware that any room that I step in, any team that I go work with, someone on that team has been through something. More than one person has been through something, right? And that is then inherently going to impact how they show up and view the world. And I think that awareness alone can be so profound in how we help and empower athletes, how we support people. Because here's something that occurs quite often, and I think this example is great, right? So something I hear a lot from, and I've been doing this work for 5 years, right, is like, let's take a coach that has a complaint, right, of a kid that's just lazy. Kid's lazy. Kid doesn't work hard. Well, let's take that kid, right? And maybe it's as simple as the kid doesn't work hard. But what if, right, we come at this from a lens of being trauma aware and compassion, right? And being aware that, well, maybe that kid actually grew up in a household where he was neglected. And maybe, right, that kid spent his entire life trying to get his parents, his caregivers, people that were supposed to take care of him, their attention. And he never got love. He never got support, right? And he kept fighting. And the way that he figured that he might get their attention was through sport. Well, if I'm just really good at my sport, maybe I'll get mom and dad's attention. And the attention never came. And so you know what that kid then did by the time he got to college? He shut down. And so it's not him just being lazy. He has never received love and care and connection for anything that he's done in his entire life. And he's just freaking tired. And he's sad, right? And so that laziness, right? And I am not saying that that is going to be the case for every single person. But do we see how that lens, that awareness, right, totally changes the perspective, right? And then, right, if that coach is potentially aware of that, think about then how that coach can come to that athlete and actually help them. Because a simple conversation, right, and realization that, wow, you know what, this is what's actually going on. You're not lazy, right? It's manifesting as the kid's lazy, right? Instead of that coach being angry and mad and continuing to belittle and berate the kid because he doesn't work hard, right? It's, you know what, I see you. And holy shit, right? I have chills, I have shivers, right? Because that moment, right, of that coach saying, you know what, I see you, right, can totally change that kid's life, 100%. Right? And so I think that is, and this is what I see. This is what I see a lot of the time, right? It's very rarely, right, just anxiety. It's very rarely just I'm an overthinker, right? There's a lot happening in this world that's a shit ton deeper. right? And I think if we become more aware of that, it creates so much compassion and understanding of how to actually help people and see people and really then empower them as not just athletes, but as people in the world.
Whoa, man, you unlock something, in my thought process. Sheesh.
Same here with the kids I train.
Right?
Nah, seriously.
And to be fair, right? At the end of the day, like I've known plenty of people, right? Where like they just lazy, right?
Yeah,
they just don't work hard. But I would say, right, that like
That's crazy,
85% of the time that's not actually the case.
And I got a story. And I know,
Yeah, you good.
you said something that was very important. And even as a kid, like, it made me think back when I was young and trying to get attention.
Yeah.
I used to show my ass. I used to act a fool.
Mm.
Oh man, I used to get in trouble. I used to get into fights. I used to do this. I used to do that. And I was struggling with some things. And just seeing what you just broke down in that spectrum of I see you.
Mm.
I had a moment as a pro this year during the season where I had a teammate that was going through something.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized it and I seen it a little bit because I'm very challenging in a way where I pay attention and I'm so agile in how I'm thinking and watching and paying attention to body language and how people are responding and reacting to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that this person was struggling with something.
Yeah.
But in ways I was still challenging them. Sometimes I wouldn't look at him. Sometimes I wouldn't talk to him. Sometimes I would hear him. But at the end of the day, he was crying out for help.
Mm. Yeah.
And there was a moment where it got ugly in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And some words were exchanged, and he said some things, I said some things, and God placed us in the right place at the right time. We pulled up at the yoga studio, and I'm in the locker room, he's in the locker room, and it was a moment that we had that changed my life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This person, they cried. It was like one of the most powerful moments because it wasn't about what we were angry about. It was about what he needed help with.
Yeah.
And consoling him in that moment as he like cried some real tears. Now I don't know, like, I'm just tearing up. Nah, like really cried. I knew in that moment, I knew this person needed this.
Yeah.
And after the session that we had or whatever like that, I took him home and we had a long conversation in the car. And we sat in that car and we talked. And I told him about some things that I felt and told him that I was sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I told him that I was sorry is that I saw you reaching and I wasn't reaching back far enough.
Mm.
But the one thing that I said to him after all of it was done, I told him that I see you.
Yeah.
I see
Crazy.
you, bro. And it's like,
Right.
Yeah, that's
when
crazy.
you hear that and knowing that this person needed that, yo, that's a lot of people in the world right now where you just
Yeah.
got to say like, yo, I actually see you.
Mm-hmm.
I see you for who you are. I see you for the work that you do. I see you even when you think nobody's paying attention to you.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where I say, I am the person that I am, and God places certain energies in certain people, and we are those energies.
Mm-hmm.
And we're meant to remind people that we see you. I see you.
Yeah.
Because we've been sent to do that work.
Mhm.
100%.
And to be in that moment and to be able to share that moment, man, it honestly changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I saw things from a different lens.
Absolutely.
Because in these moments, it is not about you.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Stop making everything about you, Rasheed, or whoever, Kenny,
Yep.
M, whoever it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
The work that you are supposed to serve is meant to give away.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what this is about. It's about giving the energy away.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
also think, there's a connection there, right? That like same thing with listening, right? Seeing and listening are they're very intertwined, right? Like listening to people. And the reality is like, we're not great listeners.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, right? Like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to you, how I'm going to respond, right?
Yeah.
And I've now taken the focus, the attention away from you and just listening to you, right? And put it on me and my response, right? So I love that, right? It's like, and, you know, think about the times in your life where like you have just genuinely been seen and heard, right? There is just an unconditional, like someone is sitting with you and just simply listening to you bare your soul. I mean, it is like the most beautiful, it's scary as hell, right? And for a lot of people, it doesn't feel safe, right?
Yeah.
But I think it is just one of the most, it's what being human and living life, I think, is all about. And these are moments that, like you're saying, can literally save people.
No, it really does, man. And as we hop into the next thing, I think that this part is where we're gonna really tap into it. It's basically in this next segment, I'm gonna read off a couple statistics.
Okay.
And I want you to kind of give your advice.
Okay.
On these statistics.
Okay.
To athletes.
Okay.
Or whoever, everybody who's listening.
Right.
So research suggests that there are higher rates of anxiety and depression amongst athletes.
Yeah, there is some research. There's a lot more research in particular that needs to be done on athletes, right? The athlete specific population. I think it is, let's take that from an angle of like, okay, well, why might that be? I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So why might that be? I think look at the nature of what sport has become in our world, starting at the youth level.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Right. So we have created quite a beast.
Yeah.
Starting at youth sports. And I think what that breeds is, as we've talked about, pressure and expectation and an emphasis, right? And a prioritization of being good and success. And actually part of that, right? There's a huge link to what has transformed in the last decade with social media, right? I mean, let's think about like when I was a high school athlete in 2006, 7, and 8, we did not have Instagram. I didn't have a highlight reel.
Nope.
Right. We didn't even, my senior year was the first time that I ever even heard about putting a tape together.
Yeah.
Right. So we have created this almost like sensation of like everything is so public and can be viewed.
Yeah.
And what we prioritize, right? What gets more likes, what gets more views, what gets more comments, right? Is success.
Yeah.
The highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
And so then everybody out there that doesn't have that feels inept, feels incapable, feels less than. I just posted something the other day, right? That's like, we tie worthiness to success in sport for athletes. Right. And whether it's been my own career or many of the athletes that I've worked with, right, they feel less worthy if they're not playing, if they're not starting.
Wow.
And the reality is that we are born being worthy.
Yeah.
We are born being worthy of love and connection. And, playing time and starting has nothing to do with that, right? But our society, the athletic community, has created that, right? And so that's just one angle of, okay, well, why do we feel like this anxiety and depression piece is actually quite prevalent for many athletes, right? Well, let's think about it this way, and let's just take like a sport like lacrosse alone. How many teams, right, let's take men's lacrosse, right, are there in the NCAA? Across Division 1, 2, and 3. We don't know, right? Not that many, right? And then let's take all of those teams and let's take 11 starting spots. the majority of players are not starting.
No,
The majority of players are not playing.
That's the
right?
truth.
Yeah.
Yet here we've now created this society that places such an emphasis on the minority, right? The 1%, right? And then let's think about like those that are then going off to play professional sport, right? Which is even less, right? And so now we've left the majority of people to feel less than.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy,
And
man.
that less than, right? That worthiness, I call it a wound because I think for a lot of people, that sense of worthiness, it is a wound, right? And, you know, there we go. The anxiety, the depression, right? So, you know, that's one angle. That's my response to that.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Kenny, I
was gonna say, and that's why, you know, a lot of times when like athletes at the college, you know, we're known as like I was talking about in my episode.
Yeah.
I was known as a football player.
Yes.
So like, what am I gonna do after?
Yeah.
Like people
100%.
are,
And we
look, you know what I mean?
we're gonna get to that one.
Yeah,
We're gonna get to
so-
that's a deep one.
yeah, it's
But
tough, bro.
I want to hear you talk about, Kenny. You deal with these athletes
Yeah,
like firsthand.
yeah.
Like what do you see?
I see. Again, you talked about the youth. It starts at the youth level.
Yeah.
I got a lot of nephews, and 4 or 5 nephews. But yeah, the parents. It starts young.
Yeah.
They want them to, you know, be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And youth sports aren't fun anymore. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun, and you know, you're supposed to learn certain things. So,
Yeah.
of course, like if I have a son too, I want my nephews to be the best. But like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you want them to have fun. And I think if parents focus on the kids' growth and having fun and just them being, you know, active,
Yeah.
that takes less pressure off of the kid.
No,
Sure.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of parents out here living through their kid.
No,
Mm.
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we weren't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there, so they want them to be, but it can go both ways too.
It
You know what I
can.
mean?
It
Because like
definitely
at the end of the day, like again, I got nephews and I push them to the limit. I want them to be the next big thing, but I also know like, all right, bro, you only 10, 11, 12 right
Well,
now.
again, I think this gets back to the, you know, two things can coexist.
Coexist at
Yeah.
one time.
Right?
No, yeah.
Like it can be fun and we can push ourselves.
Yeah, right,
Like
exactly.
both things can coexist. And I think it really depends on, you know, the messages that a lot of these kids are receiving. You're right.
Yeah.
From parents, from
Yeah.
culture. Right.
starts at
So,
They always say it starts at home. This kind of goes into the next one.
Yeah.
High performance expectations can contribute to stress. It says, according to surveys, a significant percentage of athletes report feeling stressed about performance and the pressure to succeed.
sure. Of course they do, right? And so I think there is also a piece and something that I try to again like normalize, right? Like because somewhere along the way, I feel like there was this like, you know, kids started feeling like, oh, that's not normal, right? Or that's not okay, right?
Yeah.
When the reality is like it's okay to feel a little pressure,
No,
right?
yeah.
That's and so I think a big part of what I try to do, and I think mindfulness can be really helpful with this, is like building kids' capacity to handle hard.
Yes. No, like that's
Right?
true.
Yeah.
Building your capacity, and that's a massive part of mental health. It's a massive part of emotional regulation, right? Like emotion regulation is about building our capacity to be with difficult experiences,
Yep.
Yes.
distress, right?
Yes.
Quite frankly, right? If we get into like things like, for example, like panic attack, right? Again, it's not about making hard stuff or stuff
Yeah.
that could potentially make us shift into panic go away.
Mhm.
You might not be able to do that, right? There's elements about sport and where we are with sport and elite athletics that we're not going to be able to change at this
Yeah.
point, right? But can we help our athletes build their capacity to be with distress?
Yes.
I think that's a big one.
Yes.
To be with pressure,
Yeah.
help them, equip them, right, with tools and skills, right, that enable them to really balance it in more efficient ways,
Yes.
right?
At adversity.
And adversity,
That's what I
right?
said.
And also like normalizing. I think so
Yes.
much of like, especially if we get into anxiety, like we know that the more that we actually tell ourselves if we start to get nervous or anxious, like it's okay to feel anxious,
Mhm.
we navigate better.
Yeah.
Right. So for athletes, right, that feel that pressure, like letting yourself know, like that simple reminder, like it's okay to feel the pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that. I think is, again, there's such a piece around we have to normalize that a little bit, right? And also, right, we can't blame or shame them for it, right? Or get mad at them for it. We need to then help them, right? We've got to empower them.
Mm-hmm. And my pop always told me the first thing about learning how to win is to learn how to lose. And I'll never forget that. Because I used to, when I was younger, I still hate losing to this day, but every time I lost, I would cry. And I used to hate losing. So, and he taught me that. And, of course, I still deal with losing a little. I don't like losing, but I know how to deal with it better now.
Like losing,
so,
right?
Yeah. You learn how to get through life losing.
Nah, seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned some of my biggest lessons on losing out on something.
Yeah.
Something that I
Yeah.
thought I needed.
Mm-hmm.
You think you need money.
Mm.
You think you need to win that next Grey Cup.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You think you need to be on that next football team,
Yeah.
that next NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's going to define who you are.
Mhm.
These are real things that exist.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Going into the next subject, injuries.
Gosh. Yeah.
Athletes facing injury may encounter heightened stress, anxiety, depression, affecting both their physical and their mental well-being.
Yeah.
And before you even tap into it, being a pro athlete and fighting through injuries, it is a mental grind,
Yeah. It's a grind.
and take the floor, please.
Yeah.
Because this one is athletes, please.
Yeah.
Listen up.
Yeah, this is one that I'm also pretty familiar with. I mean, I'm 33. I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've had a hip surgery. I've experienced an L4, L5 fracture in my spine, right? Like my poor body. And I think there is a piece around injury that we need to be a little bit more open about, right? Which is this element of grief. And with grief, there's been a misconception for a really long time that, well, grief is reserved or it only shows up when someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And grief simply arises when there's loss. And with an injury, I think of any capacity, right? But if we get into, more intense injuries, right, that either require surgery or you're out for a season or you're out for a significant chunk of your season, right? That is loss. It is loss of an outlet. It is loss of community because a lot of times you're not out on the field. You're in the training room, right? It's a loss of something you love.
Yeah.
It's a loss of your identity a little bit, right? So there's a lot of loss in injury, and with loss comes grief, and there comes, a variety of emotions that we need to help athletes experience, quite frankly, right? And I think it's so much about like normalizing and validating that and helping athletes give space for anything, because there's no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no right or wrong way to respond, in my opinion, emotionally to an injury, right? I know plenty of athletes that, and I think they would even tell you, right, that like there was almost a sense of relief when I got injured. Because the pressure and the expectation to show up every single day and be my best, I couldn't take it anymore. So when I got injured, right, that went away. There was relief. Right. And that makes a lot of sense, right? That's not wrong. Who's to say that that's a wrong way to feel? That's how you feel, right? So I think and so again, right, with that, it makes so much sense that, the likelihood of some type of mental health issue challenge comes up for athletes that then experience injury. We also do not do a great job of supporting athletes who have been injured.
Yes.
There are not great support structures around being injured. What I tend to find is that some teams, some coaches do a really good job of it, some don't, right? Getting injured as an athlete, I think coexists with disconnection. All of a sudden we're disconnected.
I was just about to say that.
That's true.
So, it makes so much sense, right? That then with disconnection, I mean, human beings are wired for connection. We are wired for connection with other people. And when we feel disconnected, God, what a jarring experience, right? That's incredibly hard.
Yep. Because as a head coach or a coach in general, you know this shit.
Yeah.
If you get hurt, next man up.
Next man up.
100%.
And that's kind of how it
Yeah.
works, man. Like
Crazy.
man, that's deep because you look at, being in a locker room and, I think that's a conversation I've had with the head coach one time about, he'll be like, go talk to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or like try to keep him involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there is a disconnect
Yeah.
once people get injured.
It is.
Yeah.
They feel like they're not a part of the team anymore.
Yeah.
They feel like they're not connected to like the activities.
Mhm.
They can't really do everything.
Yeah.
They standing out there. Like I always feel some sense of gratitude towards those people because I have been in positions where I've missed a week of practice or something like that.
Sure.
But I train like an animal, so I don't gotta be in that position.
Mhm.
But injuries do happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the disconnect that comes with it hurts, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you feel like you're missing out.
Mm.
But I think that, I know we've been talking about the problems,
Mhm.
but I do, as we get done this, I want to talk about what we can do for the problem.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? Like, so
Sure.
after we get done talking about these next 2 points, I
Mhm.
really want to talk about how we can help kids get through it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And how, not even just kids, pro athletes, people in general,
Mhm.
Sure.
because I feel like that key component is very, very crucial
Okay.
on how to get through it.
Sure.
And things that I want to talk about how we deal with things,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying, to
Sure.
help our mental health.
Yeah.
So let's hop into the next one. And Kenny brought this up earlier about the transition challenge.
Mm.
Basically, when athletes transition out of their sport in their career, they may encounter mental health difficulties,
Yeah.
related to identity, purpose, and lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Like what's your advice and your thoughts to that?
Yeah. I mean, of course, right? God, there was a fantastic clip by Thierry Henry. I can't even remember. I'll have to go back and find it because it was just absolutely fantastic, right? That like, of course there is this like, especially for professional athletes, right? Like a lot of times, look at the life of a professional athlete, right? It's very unlike many careers. And so then, right, trying to leave that transition into the real world, it can be incredibly jarring, right? They're not actually, I think his comment was like, we're not set up for it, right? And there's a reason for that. Because it takes a very special individual to be a professional athlete, right?
100%.
Especially, he's one of the greatest soccer players of all time, but like, he played in the English Premier League, right? Which is like, 1% of soccer players are doing that. So, I think this is why I'm such an advocate of like, I think we need to start earlier helping athletes understand what identity is and who they are as people, not just athletes.
Yes.
I think it's so important for, and again, parents play such a role in this, but really helping kids find meaning in a lot of different things and exploring, there's my word, explore, right?
Yeah.
What brings us joy? And I always say it's just as valuable to know what doesn't light your soul on fire and what you don't like or resonate with as what does, right?
Yeah.
So, I think especially for like elite high school and college athletes, like take time to explore things outside of sports,
Yes.
Yep.
right? Like have interests,
Yeah.
right? Have fun, right?
know.
In things that are not training and working
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
like, it drives me bonkers when, I ask athletes like, well, what do you do for fun? Workout. No.
Yeah.
Working out can be fun, but
Yeah.
no, go
Yeah.
do something else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that took me, to be fair, like, well into my late 20s to like find things like
figure
that.
that out,
Right.
yeah.
But I think that's really important. And that is that can be a buffer. Right. But I think also, again, right, just really normalizing that like that phase is going to be hard. It is going to be a challenge. I just posted something the other day that like nobody talks about how when you finish your athletic career, whether you're high school, college, professional, right? Like you have to totally reestablish a relationship with your physical body and
Yes.
working out, right?
Yes.
And food and pretty much everything.
Everything,
right? Like
yep.
we don't talk about that enough. And I think if we actually did talk about that and prepare our athletes for that, then they would get to that place and be like, yeah, this is going to be really hard, but I can do hard, right? And I can build again, this gets back to building our capacity to be with hard experiences, right? And equipping ourselves with tools and skills to actually navigate, right? That's what it's all about.
That's what's up.
That's a lot to unravel. While we're on the subject, I know I said we can wait till after, but what, like Kenny, like what are some of the things that you do to help?
Besides,
like when you were transitioning from not playing, where were you at that time, bro?
So, thank God I got a brother-in-law, Torrey Smith, that's in the league.
Yeah,
and he does a great job with our siblings and his sons, my nephews. He always asks, like, yo, what do you want to do? Like, he always asks that. And he'd be like, nah, not NFL or NBA.
Yeah.
Like, give me something else. So, like, I just remember when I was in college, they had all of us over for, like, a gathering, whatever. And he had this paper. They had this paper, and it was asking us, like, what's our definition of success? What are some goals we want to, I mean, that type of stuff, health goals, whatever. And, at that moment right there, I'm like, dang, like, what if I don't make it to the league? You know what I mean? And, and
like,
from that moment,
yeah,
I always was asking him, him specifically questions like, yo, bro, like, what would you do if you wasn't in the league?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what you think about this? What you think about that? And the summer going into my senior year, that's when everything kind of unraveled for me because I know I needed an internship. So I was constantly asking a lot of questions. Agent, he knew agents. I'm asking agents questions. I'm asking trainers questions. I'm just asking a lot of questions to a lot of different people. And that kind of helped me.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I said training chose me. I didn't choose training.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened. And, and I'm still in the sport.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's kind of connected. So I really can't, I still say to Sour to this day, bro, like, I can't really, I don't know what else I would do.
No,
You know what I mean? I don't know what else I'm into. I know I like helping people. And again, I think this is my calling. So I found my purpose.
Yeah.
That's my purpose.
And
love it.
You know what I mean?
That is big too. Like, bro, when we talk about purpose, that helps you find a direction that you want to go in.
Exactly.
And that's how I found ShowtimeSpeaks.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's been such a blessing, man. Because I feel like you've put NFL up. You put now being in the CFL, being a pro athlete, you put that at your top of the list.
100%. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, man, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a chef.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I project those things out into the world. So I'm posting food.
Yeah.
And people be like, man, you always posting good food. You know why? Because I am more than just an athlete.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am more than just, you know what I'm saying? I can catch, like, so when I speak, I want to speak with purpose. I want to speak with passion. I want to speak with, like, I found this. You know what I'm saying? And I found my voice in this. And like, the transition for me when I'm done, I'm stepping into this.
I'm
stepping into it.
Yes.
And we talk about it all the time, putting yourself in position. You know, I feel like I've been putting myself in position to start to transition my mind to think, when I don't have this or when I'm not this, who am I?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and be unapologetic about it.
You have to be, because I've been cut so many times and fell on my face, and people were helping me pick myself back up and trying to get it back together, that I'm just like, I'm not going to just keep being defined by this. And when I made a decision to go to the CFL, because the dream is not to go to the CFL, it's to go and play in the NFL.
Right.
I didn't feel like I didn't feel good until I won those championships.
Yeah.
So now I'm walking up the Eagles games. I'm sitting in the box with all these people. I got both my rings on, and I don't need to be validated by this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to transition my mind to, I'm better than what I thought I was.
Right.
And I don't need this to define who I am anymore. And I think a lot of athletes need to understand that when you are making that transition,
Yes, sir.
understand that, like, yo, you have more purpose than running and catching and being in that way. You got more.
Yeah.
And you look at people like me and Kenny, like, and even like, bro, it's so many people that have all these different examples of, yo, you can make it. You can make it in something that's not this.
Yeah.
I think the world has accepted it more and more.
Totally.
But it's hard though because the parents are or the kids are, and they thinking that that's all they have, and it's not all you have.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just got to know, again, when T. Smith asked me that question, what's your definition of success?
Yeah, man.
That's
Yeah,
like
I love
that's a big, because some might say, you know, I'm going to be in the NFL, but that might be your definition.
Yeah.
But like, if you're looking deep into it.
Yeah.
You
See,
know?
I look at that and I say, you know, my response to that would be like, that's not a definition. That's a goal.
Exactly.
That's a goal.
Exactly.
That's definitely a goal.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to, again, we all have to explore that, right? And know that like it's fluid. It can change, right? Your purpose can change, right? Your definition of success can change.
Yep. Mine's has.
Yeah. And
sure.
and again, the word unapologetic, right, came to mind because like I think many athletes, right, moving on from sport are really afraid to step into who they are, right? And to you know, maybe like, you know, something that like, you know, I'm a total nerd, right? Like I love to read. I read a book a week, right? And for a while I used to hide that and not talk about it, right? 'Cause it's kind of weird. And like I love like, you know, developmental stuff and like psych stuff, but I also love fantasy. Like, oh my dragons, give me dragons, right? Like, give me dragons, give me the dragons,
it's
right?
So crazy.
And I'm gonna be and something that in the last year I would say like I've really had to step in, like being unapologetic about that, right? Like don't be afraid to be you, right? And to be quirky and like kind of out there and like again like find what lights your soul on fire outside of sport.
It is so funny you said that because I got a couple dudes on my team that love to read them sci-fi books. We had a book club on the team this past year. And I be looking at them like I'm in the book club, but like it's certain books that don't excite me. And I'm like, bruh, like this ain't it. And stop using those big words. And it's so crazy because I used to get on certain people about like, hey, why you keep using all them big words? You can use like, come on, we in the locker room, bro. Like, stop. But it's so funny because that kind of energy helps set you up for when you are having conversations. And it made me realize that shit, I think you're limiting yourself. I think you're limiting yourself to what you think you know. Expand your mind, expand your vocabulary. Don't look at them and laugh about it. How about you actually like take it all in and understand like where it's coming from? And take it and apply it to you.
Be curious.
Be curious.
Right?
So
Love it.
As we get into the next one, this is our last one. This is the serious one.
Okay.
In recent years, there have been high-profile cases of athletes who died by suicide, bringing attention to mental health struggles within the athletic community. Just this is something that is going on.
Yeah, every day.
And I really want to take the time for you to really, really talk about that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think it's, you know, suicide has been a conversation, a word, quite frankly, that's been super taboo for a really long time, right? Like, ooh, don't talk about it. And I think it's really important to talk about it. And we actually know that talking about it is what saves lives, right? You know, as someone who has navigated quite a bit of suicidal ideation and what I mean by that, right? For those of you that don't know, right? Like suicidal ideation occurs on a spectrum, right? From things like, you know, potentially intrusive thoughts, right? All the way to I have a plan and intent and I take action, right? And the reality is like actually most humans at some point in their lives will navigate some type of suicidal ideation. And we need to normalize that. And we actually know when we normalize that and we validate that and we remove the shame and the blame and the guilt around that, it saves lives, right? It helps people feel less alone in that experience. So again, I've dealt with quite a bit of suicidal ideation in my life. I've attempted, you know, I have been then put in inpatient, and as a professional, a mental health professional, I, you know, have been around a lot of self-harm and clients who are suicidal or dealing with suicidal ideation. And I think the more comfortable we get talking about it, the better. And what I will say is that, you know, there is a view, many people come to conversations around suicide or suicidal ideation with a sense of anger, right? A sense of like, I don't understand why someone would do that, or I don't understand how they could get to that place, right? But the reality is that it's a very real place. It's a very real place for so many people. And I don't wish it on anyone. But the angle that we can't take, right, is that the blame and the shame, right? We have to come at this from compassion and really, again, actually normalizing and validating those experiences and creating safety around them, right? And so, yes, it's a complete tragedy, the amount of deaths by suicide that we've had within the athletic community alone in the last several years. And I think we are headed in the right direction. I think we are taking it very seriously. And I think we are really trying as a community to move the needle with regards to mental health. That being said, my comment earlier, right? In order to do that, right, we have to all become a little bit more trauma aware. We have to become more mental health literate. We have to keep having more conversations, but we also have to take action, right? It's conversations and creating awareness are not enough. And time after time, I just continue to feel like we are not putting particularly our money, our finances, where our mouths are when it comes to mental health, in terms of resources, programming, support for our athletes. If you look across, the NCAA, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, right? We're starting to see, right, more full-time positions with regards to psychologists or mental health clinicians embedded in the athletic department. But like, give me a break. You think one person is going to be able to serve 600 student athletes? It's not going to happen. Right. So in my opinion, right, there have to be some serious structural and systemic changes in order to actually make an impact.
Yes.
And, I think my work does help that, but I'm one person, right? And again, we just have to remember the centuries worth of damage that's already been done when it comes to mental health and particularly suicide, right? I mean, think about it. Like, let's go back centuries and centuries and centuries, right? I mean, just from, in many religions, right? Taking your life was not okay. In many religions, it's not, right? It's actually a sin. It's not okay. It's not talked about, right? And that just unfortunately reinforces the problem, right? And that has slowly, like century by century, continued to trickle down, right? Where it's still something that many of us are not comfortable talking about. Even when we get into therapy. I mean, I'll talk about my experience, which is like, navigating suicidal thoughts. I mean, I was even scared to tell my therapist about it. And so much of that is also because of how we deal with mental health, right? In our healthcare system, right? And so many people are afraid that, oh, if I talk about or admit that I am thinking about really hurting myself or harming myself, somebody's going to lock me up. I mean, let's just think about it, right? Like, we have created a system that more often than not fails people when it comes to mental health. I'm going to leave it at that, but I think that also contributes to the problem. And again, we need to keep doing everything we're doing. We need to keep having conversations about it. We have to be okay, right? And part of this also is, our ability to sit with someone, right, that is navigating suicidal thoughts, right? And again, release the fear around that, right? Because a lot of times, and this is where we get into, a lot of people are afraid to ask, right? They're afraid to come out and ask, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself, right? Are you thinking about suicide? They're afraid to use the word because they don't want an answer. It's terrifying, right? And so we need to build people's capacity to actually hear that and to sit with someone in their darkest moment, right? And to put out a hand and say, you know what? I'm here. I'm here I know, I see you,
I
right? I
see
see
you.
you, right?
Yep.
And I hear you, and
Oh, man.
I want to be with you in this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm with you.
And again, that stuff is so hard. It's really hard. It's even hard as a mental health therapist, right? Who's trained in it. But I think if we actually build and help people do that and get more comfortable with it, we actually save lives, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
then the question is asked, then they're seen and heard, right? And then we can support them, right?
Yeah.
We save their lives. So yeah, I mean, it's a really, of course it's a heavy topic and we need to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And we also, again, if we get back to that systemic structural piece, right? Around just helping all athletes with mental health, I think we will move the needle on suicide in particular.
Yeah, bringing more awareness to. I like that. That's a deep conversation, and it's definitely something that that we need to bring more awareness to. And I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's go into what are some things that you guys do to help you get through?
Yeah.
I know I do. I go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I cook.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes read. I come to this mic. I
Mm-hmm.
speak. I
Mm-hmm.
give it back. I really am I'm a yogi.
Yeah.
I'm a huge firm believer in finding myself in that place, submitting to that, being one with myself.
Mm-hmm.
That has changed my life in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Even when it comes down to like playing Candy Crush on my phone, certain things that help keep my mind busy.
Mm-hmm.
I play a lot. I play the game. People look at playing a game like, oh, that's like a kid. No, but for real, it's a time for me to escape the world and be in a place where it's just, you like escape it. You get the chance to like really communicate with your friends, have a little fun, talk some shit, and just do stuff like that. I think that that's something that I do. What are some of the things that you do?
Yeah. I love that. I think I'm such a proponent of like, I call them the basics, right? So like, these are just foundational things for overall well-being, but also like when the going gets really tough and you are really in the throes of navigating something hard, like the basics are really important, right? So think sleep and also non-sleep rest, right? We can get rest in ways that aren't sleep, right? Food and water, right?
Yeah.
Staying hydrated, what you're putting in your body, hygiene, right? Like actually taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like getting in the shower, washing your face, right? Keeping up with all that self-care stuff, right? Yeah, routine. Connection, right? Again, we're wired for connection and we know that mental health breeds in isolation. So, and we also need to know that like not all connection is equal, right? So connection doesn't mean, okay, great, I've got to, get dressed in my, from head to toe and put my makeup on and go out and be social. No, connection can be like texting someone. Hey, I'm really going through something,
being
right?
responsive.
Yeah. So like we can find connection in ways that support us, but I think that's really important. I think movement is another one. And I say movement because movement doesn't necessarily mean working out. Again, I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, my mental health is working out or like, how I navigate my mental health is working out. I'm like, okay, well, that's a part of it. Right. But movement can just mean like getting up and changing the location that you're in.
Massage
right.
therapy.
Right.
That's what I do.
But, right. So
change location.
Movement can be a lot of different things. I mean, I'm a walker. I love to walk. I think for me, like, and there's also this misconception that like when we process or like be with emotions, we have to like sit there in stillness and like be in the emotion. And that doesn't necessarily, that we don't have to do that, right? I'm a walker. I love when I need to think or process or be with an emotion. I go for a walk. I put my sunglasses on in case I need to cry a little bit and I go for a walk, right? And I don't want anyone to talk to me, right? So movement, I think, is another one. But like, then we get into like, we're not going to get in depth to this. Maybe we come back and do 2.0, right? But like, then we actually need emotion regulation skills. And like, for me, I think a couple of them, and this is where like, a lot of people talk like mental skills, but like I think some foundational ones, like obviously mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is a transformative skill when it comes to our thinking and feeling, right? And navigating life, right? Self-compassion is another one, right? Learning to be our inner ally. right?
No, yeah.
Learning to treat ourselves the way we treat the people that we love, right? Coming to ourselves with more grace and kindness. Self-compassion is so transformative. Validation, learning how to validate your emotions, self-validation, right? Not needing someone else to validate your emotions, right? You learning the capacity to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And then lots of having what I call like a toolbox of coping skills. Like you need ways to actually cope with distress, right?
Yeah.
And cope with really hard stuff. You know, like I said, like walking can be a coping skill.
Yep.
Breath work can be a coping skill, right?
Yeah.
At times, distraction can be a coping skill, right? So I think those are like kind of the 4 major ones for me.
Yeah. What about you, Kenny?
She mentioned it. I like to go away.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Of course, I always work out. Sometimes I don't even want to be in the gym. I do yoga too.
Yep.
But honestly, when I need to just focus on me, I like going away,
Yeah.
switching locations. And, you know, every time I switch a location, I might still train, but it's just different.
Different
When
environment.
different environment. I love Florida. I love the sun. I love them palm trees. So like every time for me, I just like getting away.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
No,
And just being alone. I like being, you know what I mean? I don't like really being around a lot of people all the time
Yeah.
because I'm, you know how we are.
social.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I just like
That's
to
social.
disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, turn my phone off and just.
I think that's really healthy. I
chill.
think it's really good. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I
Turning the
mentioned
phone
again,
off
you know, I
is
said
important.
we're wired for connection, right? And we don't like, we know isolation isn't great, but I think isolation is different from being really solid and grounded in who you are and,
Yeah.
and needing that alone time,
that
right? That's really
recharge.
important too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
recharge. To close it out, let's go into the last segment.
Okay.
And this last segment is, you know, pertaining to you.
Mhm.
We call this the keep going segment.
Okay.
And I want you to describe a time in your life where you had to pick it all back up
Ooh.
and you had to push through something that hurt you, something that challenged you, where you had to keep going.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll describe you know, my kind of what I call hitting rock bottom, which was you know, 27, 28 years old. I was living panic attack to panic attack. I was dealing with quite a bit of trauma-related stress, post-traumatic stress. I had just kind of ended, or more so, I got broken up with a relationship that, you know, I was so enmeshed in. I really felt like I laid it out on the line and got really vulnerable. And that was a really scary thing for me to do in the months that I was with this person. And I got my heart broken, to be honest with you. And I just, you know, it was kind of like what I call the perfect storm, right? Like I had a lot of already underlying, you know, I was still living panic attack to panic attack. And then, you know, this heartbreak on top of it. And I really just felt like, I had no reason to wake up in the morning, right? I just really got to a place where, you know, truly, I didn't want to live life. I didn't think it was worth it. I felt very, very broken, very deficient. And yeah, sure enough, I landed myself in an inpatient psychiatric ward for the second time in my life. And in that inpatient psych ward, I sat in there and I kept looking across the room, right? And I'm in with, you know, Gen Pop. And if anyone has experience with inpatient, it's interesting, right? And when you're in with Gen Pop, you're in with people who, you know, my roommate was a heroin addict, right? So you're in with people from all walks of life. And I kept looking around that room thinking like, I deserve to be here. Right? Like I'm broken. I deserve to be here. And at the same time, right, I thought, oh my God, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. I've got to figure this out. And so I got out and I went home to my mom and dad, which also felt like a huge failure because, you know, oh my God, I'm supposed to be 27, 28. I'm supposed to have my life figured out and, you know, have it all together. And I just didn't. And I really felt so lost. And that's really that moment where I would have taken anything. I would have taken a breadcrumb if somebody told me that that was going to help me, right? Just wake up in the morning. And that's when, that voice, I hadn't changed my clothes in probably 3 days at that point, right? I'm 3 days out of inpatient, hadn't changed, hadn't really moved from the couch, honestly. Wasn't sleeping, was just still like so strung out. And all of a sudden, right, there was this thing in the back of my brain that was like, go put your leggings on and go take a yoga class. And so I didn't even have a mat. I showed up and I had to rent a mat. And I got on my mat and I started moving. And like I mentioned earlier, the words from the yoga instructor were, something to the extent of like, there's nowhere else you need to be and there's no one else you need to be, right? Just give yourself permission to be exactly as you are right now. And for me, right, I was a hot mess, right? I was utterly broken. I was devastated at what my life had become. And I felt like such a failure and I didn't know how I was going to keep going. And she was giving me permission to just be in that. And that was so profound for me. It really was. It was just like, wow, oh my God. It felt like I could actually take a breath again. And that honestly, I think that saved my life because I got out of there and I go, I'm a little curious now. I'm going to, let me look into this yoga mindfulness thing, right? And sure enough, I ordered a couple books, right? And I get reading and then I landed on that quote, right? You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And, this epiphany, right, came of like, oh my gosh, like I may not necessarily, right, be able to stop, what I'm going through, right? The pain, the devastation, right? The waves. But I can keep moving through it and I just need to figure out how. And that just, I think, brought a new light to what I was experiencing in the moment. And I think it really gave me freedom to turn towards my experience without shame and turn towards it with honestly like compassion. I didn't know it was compassion at the time, but it was compassion, right? To just say like, okay, you know what? This is not ideal. It's not fun, but like, let's just keep moving forward with it. And yeah, I think that was, my kind of keep going moment. And slowly, surely enough, right? That obviously led me to really find my purpose and meaning in life. And here I am 5 years later, from my business 5 years later, but from that moment, almost 6 years later. And oh my God, I mean, I wake up every day loving life. There's pieces of my life, right, that I still know I have to work at, right? And I'm not totally healed and I'm not totally satisfied, but like I genuinely love my life. I wake up every single day and I'm so honored and privileged to do the work that I do and make sure, that no athlete that I come across ever gets to the place that I was at. And that to me is like the greatest gift that I could ever ask for. And, I don't believe that we have to go through really tough stuff in order to be great people or to get to that. But I think it is about how you navigate it, right? And I'm really thankful and I'm really proud that I was able to, in those really dark moments, like just keep waking up.
That's deep, Em. And I appreciate you sharing that, man. I had no idea about those things. And you just opened up a can of worms that I know a lot of people that are listening are going through. And when it's coming from a person of somebody who experienced it, it's coming from a different place. And when you walk the walk, there's so much passion behind it.
Yeah.
There's so much heart and love and what you give to people, and I'm thankful for our relationship. And I'm thankful that we got a chance to come on the show and make this a topic.
Yeah, me too.
And share this with the world, because you're not alone. You're not alone in how you feel. You're not alone in your thoughts. You know, we all go through things in our life where it just don't feel right sometimes. And to have this kind of conversation, to talk about this, that's a step towards healing.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for you to come on the show. You know, me and Kenny are definitely thankful. And it's hard out here.
It's hard being human.
And when you get to wake up every single day with your purpose on your heart,
it's a beautiful thing.
it's a beautiful thing, because nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
And as we come to a close, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being a part of this movement. As I always say, continue to walk on this journey, continue to be with us, continue to walk with us. And it's always, 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 always Showtime Speaks.